What's doing, everybody? Today is Thursday, August 29th, and we are only 68 days away from Election Day. I've got some great guests joining me on the podcast today. We're going to get geopolitical with Chang. We're going to talk about abortion with Father Frank Pavone, and we're going to talk about AI, creativity, and the works with author Chad Stewart. I'm Alec Lace. This is The Alec Lace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to The Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, let's do this. Welcome, everybody, to the Alec Lace Show. I'm happy and honored, as always, to be here with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the live broadcast, last broadcast of August, if you're watching it on Rumble, please get involved in the live chat. Don't forget to hit the like button and follow the channel. And wherever you may be picking this up on the replay, if it's on Apple or Spotify, YouTube, wherever it may be, please don't forget to like it, subscribe, leave a review, share it with your friends, share it with everybody in your neighborhood. We need all hands on deck. We are 68 days away from what is ultimately going to decide the fate of this country. Will we be able to save the republic on November 5th? Is the future of this country going to be communism? That is what we're going to see. We're looking at Trump or communism, freedom or communism. It is a dangerous time in America to think of what could happen if it possibly falls into the hands of Kamala Harris and her lackey there, Tim Walz. We are in trouble. So, of course, and you know, she's going to do her first sit-down interview, Kamala Harris, and because, you know, she can't do anything by herself, she has to be protected all times. Her first interview that she's actually going to give is going to be with Tim Walz, the creep and the loser that he is. So, you know, set your sights on that to see what you're looking at. And we'll get to more of just how bad she is in just a second. But as I said at the top, 3 topics for you that we're going to cover on today's show. One of them, we're going to talk about China and what's going on with China. How are we going to fare with Kamala being at the helm with China? How are we going to fare with Trump being at the helm? What's going on with this fentanyl coming in through our border from China? And there is nobody who has their finger on the pulse with what's going on with China than the man who literally writes the books on China, and that is Chang. So Chang is going to be here first up. Then we're going to get into this AI, which has been basically taking over all of our lives, and how it is affecting our political world, how it's affecting our educational world with our kids. I know if you have kids like I do, that chat GTP and this AI stuff is very, very much a problem. Not to mention there's so many other things. So we're going to get into all of that with author Chad Stewart. And then we're going to switch gears. Pope Francis came out with this ridiculous statement yesterday, how it is a grave sin to reject migrants. We know that he is far left, this Pope. We know that he is not a Trump guy. We know that he is not a freedom of America guy. It seems like, you know, he's got some very bizarre stances for the leader of the Catholic Church. And so we're going to have my friend Father Frank Pavone on the podcast here at the end to speak about all these things that are going on, especially too when you have the 2 most ludicrous abortion lunatics that are running for Washington right now, for the White House. This could become a major catastrophe. So we're going to get into the abortion, Pope Francis, and all of that with Father Frank. So before I get to the interviews, just like I said at the top there, Kamala's going to give her first sit-down interview. This is why they've protected her so badly. Listen to how she's speaking to a bunch of high school students, and listen to how she speaks to them. Here's a clip.
Country is counting on you. All of you. You are leaders. By the very fact that you all are here in this room, doing what you do at this incredible school, doing it as one big team, understanding all of the different parts that fit together to create a team.
She talks to these high school kids like they're in kindergarten. right? She's giving them the junior word salad. Like, she doesn't want to give them the full-blown, the big salad, right? Like on Seinfeld, you get the big word salad if you're an adult. But if you're in high school, you get the junior word salad. And she's talking to them like, oh, and she's so animated in the way she's talking. Like, what do you think? These kids are idiots? These are high school kids. She's talking to them like they're invalids. She's talking to them like they're kindergartners. So that's kind of what you can expect. It's all fake. Everything she does is phony, and we see that time and time again, and that clip really brings it home. Meanwhile, here's the guy who's supposed to be the president. Here he is yesterday on the beach, once again, taking a break, taking it easy. He spent 40% of his presidency on vacation, this guy. Who is running the country? It seems like it's Kamala's country right now, yet she doesn't want to be tied to anything that's happening because supposedly it's going to be fresh. Oh, we're going to go for something for change, like this actor, Ben Stiller. This left-wing lunatic yesterday, they interview him and he says, oh, I want to go for Kamala because we need change. Change? She's been there for the last 4 years. What are we changing to? Change is going to Donald Trump, and that's the change we need. So Joe Biden, it just seems more and more likely that they're going to, push this guy into the ocean and they're going to make Kamala Harris the president of the United States. Mark my words, it's going to happen before we get to it, to the election. Now, I had Laverne Spicer on a podcast on Tuesday, and she was just talking about this. And here's this video here. You have this talk about border czar Kamala Harris, right, and what she's done to this country. Look at this video here. You have got Venezuelan gang members that have taken over an apartment complex in Colorado. Check out this footage. It reveals an armed gang at a complex in Aurora, Colorado. Aurora officials have been investigating the Tren de Aragua gang, a Venezuelan group involved in human smuggling, violence, money laundering, and drug trafficking across the United States, including at the Nome Street apartment complex in Aurora. So here you go. Here's some more of the asylum seekers, right? Just trying to better off families. That's what you got. That's what they're telling you. Oh, these are asylum seekers. They're just trying to better their life. They want to integrate. They want to become Americans. And these are the people you see walking through your apartment complex and changing the way that you live. And this is happening all across America. And Kamala Harris is doing everything she can to disassociate herself with that title of border czar because it is at her fault. Now all of a sudden she's talking about, oh, she wants to build the wall. She wants to continue funding building the wall. When she's knocked it for the last 4 years or longer than that. So she's not fooling anybody. She's got no original ideas. We are flooded in this country with criminals, gang members, drug dealers, child traffickers, and the works because of Kamala Harris. So you cannot allow this woman anywhere near the White House. Only going to get worse. And how many children have they lost? 320,000 children, plus 85,000 children from last year. Nobody cares. Nobody knows where they are. No one cares what's going on. So I just wanted to touch on that first. And right now, again, 68 days to go to decide the fate of this country. And one of the things that's going to be one of the most important things is going to be our foreign affairs. And I know that right now it seems like we hear more and more about Russia and the Ukraine war. We hear more about Iran and what's going on with Iran and Israel and in the Middle East. We hear about Afghanistan, all these other different countries. But right now, China, what in the world is going to happen if Kamala Harris gets control of the country and has to deal with Xi Jinping? Right? What is going to happen? So many things are happening right now behind the scenes, and in the geopolitical world, there's nobody better to go to when it comes to China than my next guest, Gordon Chang. Gordon Chang has given briefings at the National Intelligence Council, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the U.S. State Department. He has appeared before the United States House Committee on Foreign Affairs. You've seen him on every single thing. His works, his writings have been in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the National Review. He's appeared on CNN, Fox Business, MSNBC, CNBC, everything. I mean, on and on and on. He has spoken at Columbia, Cornell, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. I mean, this is the top of the chain when it comes to dealing with China and dealing with what's going on. So I'm honored to get him on the podcast today. He does have a new book. He's written a number of best-selling books. He's got a new one dropping in October called Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. And so we're going to take a deep dive right now. So buckle up. Let's bring Gordon Chang on the show.
You're listening to the Alec Show. The future is family.
All right, let's do this. Joining me now, Gordon Chang. Welcome to the Alec Lay Show.
Thank you so much, Alec.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and I can't tell you how much I'm waiting for your new book. I know it drops October 1st, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. China, in my opinion, has committed an act of war against the United States, just with the fentanyl alone that they have manufactured that's been pouring into our country, that's killing Americans just by the day. So what's your latest attempt here to explain this war that China has on America?
Well, you're absolutely right. Killing 75,000 Americans with doses of illicit and illegal Chinese fentanyl is an act of war each and every year. And this is not just sort of Chinese criminals, quote unquote. This is the Communist Party. Because in the Communist Party's total surveillance state, they know what these gangs are doing, and so they approve it. And we know that some of these Chinese gangs are actually Chinese state producers, state-owned producers. Chinese diplomats, they give cover to the gangs. Chinese officials inspect every container leaving China. We know that the Chinese fentanyl gangs, they launder their proceeds through the Chinese state banking system. China's own TikTok promotes illegal drug use. I can go on, but the point is, this is a project of the Communist Party. And as you point out, this is an act of war.
Yeah, and it's so sad because the fentanyl has swept through this country like a missile. I mean, it's affecting everybody. Every state has been affected by this. It's affecting upper class, middle class, lower class. There's no prejudice with this fentanyl. It is going after everybody. And it's just, you see these videos that come out of these people that look like it's a zombie apocalypse, whether it's in Philadelphia or San Francisco. And it's people that are on this fentanyl that are so hooked on this stuff. And you're always one taste away from the end of your life, because it only takes a small amount. And we've got enough fentanyl coming in, enough to kill probably half the population every week is coming into the country. And that's only what we know of what we're getting.
That's right. And, we've seen these videos of the zombies. When I gave a talk in Las Vegas about 3 or 4 months ago, I actually saw one of these people, and it's indescribable. This is a project to kill Americans. China talks about unrestricted warfare. They've got this people's war that they've declared upon us, which is total war in Communist Party thought. So yes, we have to recognize what's going on. And unfortunately, we have a political class, which is not just liberal Democrats, but also conservative Republicans, who have been determined not to protect us from China. This is a problem across our political spectrum, and the American people need to demand that Republicans and Democrats start defending our country first, putting our interests first, not those of the communist regime.
Yeah, because their thought is to destroy America without firing a shot, and they're doing pretty well at that. And then I wanted to kind of get your take now. Where is the whole China stand with invading Taiwan? This is something that we've been hearing about since before the Ukraine-Russia war. Like we've heard about this threat of China not recognizing Taiwan, going in to invade Taiwan. So what is the latest that you've been hearing about a possible invasion from China into Taiwan? Will they do it?
I don't think that China will start hostilities with an invasion of the main island of Taiwan. I think it's because the Chinese military feels it's too difficult. I think Communist Party civilian leaders believe that the casualties would be too high for the Communist Party to survive. So it's just my guess. I don't worry too much about Taiwan. What I do worry about is what's going on in the Philippines and the South China Sea, because there, especially since the middle of June, we have been seeing some very dangerous, very provocative activities, the type that start wars. I can't say that Xi Jinping has made the decision to go to war, but I can say that he's made the decision to risk war. And he's made the decision to risk war, not just with the Philippines, but also with the United States, because we have a mutual defense treaty with Manila. Philippines is part of our defensive front line. So we have a lot of stake in this, Alec. And so, I could be wrong about Taiwan, but the point is we're seeing the types of activities that start wars in the South China Sea. And by the way, China's also at the same time pressuring Taiwan, but pressuring Japan and India. So this is an all-front provocation on the part of Xi Jinping.
Well, I would imagine too that Xi Jinping would rather see Kamala Harris win this election than Donald Trump. That's my opinion. I think if I'm Xi Jinping, I want to see Kamala in there. But what is your take on the relationship or the relations between the United States and China if it's Kamala versus if it's Trump dealing with the Communist Chinese Party?
I agree with you. I mean, I don't know what Xi Jinping wants, but I think that he is rooting for Kamala Harris. And the reason is a very simple one. And that is that, you know, the Chinese really didn't like a lot of things Biden did, but they liked Biden because he was predictable. They could read him, they could figure out what he was going to do next. Chinese leaders can get along with hostile American presidents. They've done that for a very long time. The one thing they can't do is they can't get along with unpredictable American presidents, and Trump was unpredictable. And we have to go back to April 2017 when Xi Jinping was at Mar-a-Lago over that most beautiful piece of chocolate cake, as President Trump said. He announced that he had ordered a missile strike on Syria, which is China's friend. And Xi Jinping was flummoxed. He was silent. He didn't know what to say. And we saw a China that, although was engaging in activities we didn't like, it was not doing anything what it is doing these days under the Biden administration. And by the way, Jake Sullivan, who was just wrapping up his 3-day trip to Beijing, said that he was touting Kamala Harris's China policies if she were to be elected. And so really what I think was going on was essentially that we heard the National Security Advisor courting the CCP vote. One other thing, we know that in 2020 that China was voting for, first of all, Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primaries. And then it was certainly doing everything it could to get Joe Biden elected as president. That's what happened in 2020. Right now, we don't have very much indication of what the Chinese regime is doing, except, and this is important, on TikTok, the videos are very much anti-Trump, which is an indication that China is using the curation algorithm to support Kamala Harris.
Wow. Yeah, I would believe it. I mean, if obviously we don't have the information, but I would imagine that the CCP, Xi Jinping are pulling for Kamala Harris to get in there. I just kind of wanted to switch over to the economic side for China for a second here too. I'm a railroad mechanic. That's what I do. I've been doing that for 25 years, and I know that right now China has got a lot of rail debt. You just put a tweet about this the other day because I know from being there, the infrastructure in our country, it needs a lot of work. I mean, the rail system is very, very outdated. This is why I got upset when they were talking about building a new high-speed rail in the desert over there, connecting Dubai and this whole bit. I'm saying we don't even have this stuff here yet. But China right now has got the phenomenal railway system, yet they are in $90 billion of rail debt alone. And so how has this kind of debt to their economy been going over there with China?
Yeah, $900 billion in rail debt alone. Yes, they've got some of the most sophisticated and advanced railway systems. Put us to shame, and that's clear. But the point is that it's not sustainable. Now, one could argue that infrastructure is never sustainable. But the problem right now is China has a debt crisis, and railway debt is a substantial portion of it. We know they're closing rail stations because they're just not feasible. And this is just something that we could see that was happening. It's very simple. Economics of rail. It's great if you've got cities within something like 400 miles of each other or less, but it's terrible when it's beyond that. And China's been putting rail lines, which are really, really long. So this was entirely foreseeable. And what it means is that although China has a lot of shiny infrastructure, not just rail, it is a disaster in the making because they've got a debt crisis and they have no solution for it.
And also, too, it seems like there's, from what I'm reading, there's a housing crisis there as well, as people have been investing in homes that aren't even built. And so it's leaving these people, flat. I mean, these people have been spending money investing in homes that don't even exist. So any word on what's going on with all that?
Yeah, China has a population of 1.4 billion. Last September, a former statistics official gave a speech saying that China had enough vacant apartments for its entire population of 1.4 billion. Now, some China analysts will disagree. They say they've got enough for 3 billion people, maybe 4 billion people. It depends how you do some of the arithmetic. But the point is that there's no coming back from this. That China right now has a critical housing problem. And it's actually worse than it would be in America, because in China, flats, apartments are left vacant because they are considered to be stores of values. Americans will buy gold coins if they're upset about the way things are going on. The Chinese, they buy flats. And so they've seen their stores of value decline. So this is a crisis for the regime in more ways than one.
And the last thing I kind of wanted to get to, too, was that I know Elon even tweeted about this, I believe, yesterday, that the EVs in China electric vehicles have now outsold the combustion engines for the first time. They're selling like hotcakes over there, and because they're making them so cheap. And obviously over here, the tariffs would make them impossible to do it. But it seems like they are going all in on the EV cars, and they're becoming more popular over there. What is the sentiment in China right now as it stands with EV vehicles?
Yeah, that's right. EVs are now outselling regular combustion engines, and it's largely because the government wants them to. And I'm sure that Elon Musk is really happy about that. The problem is that EVs have been oversold as a solution to quote unquote climate change. They might be good for the climate if they're not powered by coal-fired electricity. Put that aside for the moment. They are horrible for the environment. When you talk about mining of cobalt and lithium and other things, as well as the disposal of dead batteries. And in addition, they pollute the roads because they're heavier, which means more rubber left on the roads. There are all sorts of problems with it. Doesn't matter in China because the regime has made a decision that they want to have EVs. And the Chinese people, they really don't have as much a choice as we do. Where Americans have choice, we're sticking with the internal combustion engine. People are selling their Teslas. Sorry, Elon. But clearly, this is a solution whose time has not yet come.
Yeah, Americans still want their combustion engines, and the dealerships cannot get rid of these EV cars. They have just been burdened by what has been, to steal Camilla's line there. So, all right, Gordon Chang, I always love going to you for my China information because I feel like you always got your finger on the pulse. It's what you do, and I'm really looking forward to this Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. Where can the people go, and what else should they know about this book that's dropping?
Yeah, I tweet at Gordon G. Chang because China changes by the moment. So that's where I primarily do it. And I archive all my articles for free at www.gordonchang.com.
Yeah, and with book drops October 1st, I'm going to put the pre-order link for the Amazon. Is that the best place for everybody to go?
That's a great way. Yes, thank you.
All right, you got it, Gordon Chang. It's an honor. I'd love to have you on again anytime down the line. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time today on the Alec Lay Show.
It's an honor for me, Alex. So thank you so much.
All right, honored to have Gordon Chang on the podcast here. What do you guys think about the interview? Hit me with a comment down below. Get involved in the live chat. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to follow the channel if you could. And Plan Red will drop October 1st, I believe it is. China's project to destroy America. I got the link to the pre-order down in the description below. Get yourself the information. You always hear me tell you that. You've got to get yourself the information. And if you want to be educated on the topic of what's going on with China, Gordon Chang has spent his entire life focusing on the subject. So he is the best person to go to. So take a look at the book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Grateful that he took a few minutes. And imagine Kamala Harris and Xi Jinping, what these other world leaders, too, they must think of. Oh, my God, they must be licking their chops, thinking they're going to get Kamala Harris to deal with. And they're going to have this Tim Walsh character behind her. Like that. I mean, this is. You would think China, Iran, Russia, they got to be doing everything possible to hope and pray that Kamala Harris wins this election. Everything. The last thing they want to do is see Trump in there. All right, let's switch gears here now. The Supreme Court yesterday struck down Kamala Harris and Biden's plan to pay off students who have these student loan debts, I should say. They shot this thing down. It was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court. Once again, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden were trying to bribe people, vote for us, and we'll pay off your student loans, and we're going to take it from the taxpayers, the uneducated taxpayers, and we're going to pay off your student debt. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's unconstitutional. Biden has decided he's going to just disregard the Constitution and buy his votes for Kamala anyway. Kamala Harris tied to this exactly. When you just have to think of it like this. It is the Harris-Biden administration, because Biden is nowhere to be seen or found. But again, they shoot this down. Now, what is going on with our education system? And again, I've been harping on this thing too. Our education system has been shot because it's in the hands of these government Marxists who are indoctrinating our kids. And now we are killing our kids' ability to have creative thinking, to be creative. And we are not seeing our kids develop the way that they should be to compete. Not only just in our market here in the United States, but on the global market, in the global world. I mean, we are putting our kids so far behind, and that's just in the school system alone. And a big part of this is the AI takeover. Now, this artificial intelligence, this AI, we've heard Elon Musk, doomsday about this. And I'll tell you what, it is amazing how fast it seems like it has sprinted, because it seems like it was like talks about it. Now it's like, whoop, it's everywhere. It's impacted every single part of our life, and it's going at 150 miles an hour forward. And it's a dangerous thing. It's a fun thing. It's a good thing. Everything tied together, but it's impacting our kids, the way they're learning and everything else. So I wanted to bring on today author Chad Stewart. He is the author of the very highly popular and successful Britfield series, and he's got a way of tying in all of these different global issues into his writings, into his books, and he is very, very well spoken on the topic. So we're going to get into the AI and so much more with him. He's got a new book coming out in October as well in the Britfield series. You'll find the link to that book down in the description below. And don't forget, right after this, we're going to switch topics again, and we're going to talk about Pope Francis, abortion, and more with Father Frank Pavone. So stick around. All right, let's do this. Let's bring on Chad Stewart to the podcast.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Chad Stewart. Welcome to the Alec Lace Show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. You're the author of that popular book series, Britfield. You have a new chapter in the series coming out in October, and I love the way that you're able to weave in some of these complex global issues into your storytelling. And one that I wanted to hit on right out of the gate here is the dangers of AI, because it's something right now that's consumed so much of what's going on, even in the political atmosphere that we're seeing right now. Elon Musk calls it a grave threat to humanity. It could destroy all of humanity. So how do you see AI affecting everything globally, but specifically politically?
Yeah, I think there's a heavy push for it. It's, if you will, the usual suspects that are always sort of pushing for it. I think it has a great danger to it, and I think it needs to be discussed as we are. There's good parts to everything, just like technology or the cell phone, but there's also bad parts of it. And I think the thing with AI is there's always that kind of push towards transhumanism and the idea that AI is smarter than we are, and that it can start to think for us. And the thing about AI is it's at the core of it is not a very good thing, and it's not creative, and it never will be. And I know that there's a lot of debate out there that it's creating music, it's creating literature, it's creating paintings. It's not creating anything. It's plagiarizing and mixing in with things that are even humanly created. And so the sense that we can be replaced, that God, frankly, has made a mistake, that the human body can be improved, I mean, it's all just nonsense. And those that are at the top that are pushing it, are the usual suspects. I'm trying to be really respectful. But I mean, what's going to happen with technology and AI as they continue to push it, unless we push back and we counter it, is that it's going to eventually replace, I have some statistics, but they're saying in the next 5 to 7 years, it'll replace about 90% of all accounting jobs, 50 to 60% of all media jobs, 40 to 50% of all medical jobs. That includes doctors, nurses, and the whole staff. And so basically it's putting out an entire world population of key roles, and the only so what's left, in a sense, and so many people that are pushing it are really kind of what I would call the useful idiots. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's going to be their own demise. I think like anything, there's a balance to it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's that smart at all. But there are some areas that it can obviously do some technology things that are incredible. You know what I mean? And that work fast. But for me, and especially for your audience and parents, it's like I would push creativity. Creativity is the number one most important skill set in the world. I've said that on many other interviews. It's not technology. It's not engineering. It's not mathematics. It's not medicine. Those aren't the skills. It's creativity, because at creativity, at the core of it is everything. Every creation, every entrepreneurship. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching things. It's critical thinking. It's communication, collaboration, brainstorming, looking at things from different angles. So as people are kind of getting it in many ways, their worthless degree at a college for $350,000 now, at the end of 4 years for paper certificate, in 4 years, pretty much what they've trained for would almost be obsolete. But if they have a creative ability, they can adapt quickly. They're nimble, and they can adjust, and they can think outside the box and work within the system, instead of just being narrow-minded in a cube and sorry, like, that job doesn't exist that I just spent 4 years for. So I'll stop there, but those are just some points.
Well, you make great points, and one of the things too, I mean, that we've seen over the last few decades here is that they do not want people thinking. They do not want people using their minds and their creativity. And one place where this is apparent, I've got 4 kids. One just graduated high school. I got one in high school. I got 2 in grammar school, and I know from the high school, these kids are all using AI for all of their papers. They're using this chat GTP. They're using it for everything. And so not only does the school not encourage you to think critically, it's also kind of looking the other way when kids are turning in this chat GTP stuff and just going with that. And they rely on that. And they're thinking, well, why would I need anything else? I have this at my disposal. So not only is the devices taking away their abilities because they're zoned in on it all day long, no matter what, they're TikToking and they're Instagramming, and that's taken over. But now when they're actually asked to apply themselves to doing some work, they rely on the technology as well. And for all these advancements, and to your point about creativity, it's been hundreds of years, and we don't have anybody writing Shakespeare. We don't have anybody playing Mozart or Beethoven. We don't have anybody painting the Mona Lisa. We don't have these artistic skills that should have developed over time. Right now, we should be blowing that stuff away, but we're not doing it, and we're suppressing whatever creativity we might have.
Yeah, and that's very accurate. We've been in a creativity crisis for over 30 years. I'm quoting a book title called The Creativity Crisis by Dr. Kim. She's a researcher out of William and Mary, and she researched and documented over 20 plus years, over 300,000 students. And she showed specifically in 10 areas where creativity was going down almost at a 45-degree angle every single year. And this isn't by accident. This is by design. It's mostly coming from the Democrat side of the liberal aisle, to say the very least, and an absolute archaic and useless educational system that is, controlled by a mafia of liberal nonsense, and it's based on a 19th century archaic model, really a factory model, and the only qualification for a child to be in the room is that they're 12 or 13 or 14. The model's broken. You're wondering why a 9 or 10-year-old is antsy being put in a seat for 40 hours a week. Are you kidding me? It's like, they need building blocks. They need the coloring crowns. They need to be outside playing, throwing the Frisbee, building a fort. But it's very interesting. These are some of the statistics just for your, because you're right. Creativity has been crushed over the last 30 plus years. And that's why we are in a creativity crisis. Whereas before I said, literally creativity is the number one important skill set. And that's not just me, that's statistics. You can do the research out there. There's 3 skills right now that are the most important. It's creativity, communication, and storytelling. Isn't that interesting? Because storytelling is interwoven through every single thing we do. As a child giving a book report, depending on how well you convey that story is the difference between a C and a B and an A. My resume, that's a story. An interview when I'm competing against 300 other people for one position, how well I convey my story and answer my questions is the difference between being jobless or getting the job. So storytelling is in everything. It's in marketing. It's in business. It's the doctor telling you, approaching, a tough subject. It's a consulting firm. It's in everything. But since the 1990s, skills have killed curiosities and passions, narrowed visions, lowered expectations, stifled risk-taking, destroyed collaboration, narrowed minds, killed deep thoughts and imagination, forced conformity, and solidified hierarchy. As a result, children today have become less emotionally expressive, less energetic, less humorous, less imaginative, less talkative, less verbal expressive, less unconventional, less lively and passionate, less perceptive, and less likely to see things from a different angle. Isn't that a horrible negative thing to think that that's what the schools have been producing and putting out, when I would want my child to have all those skills, less conformity, more thinking outside the box, more individuality, more independent thinking, more critical thinking. I'll stop there.
And the combination to go along with that, Chad, is what I harp on all the time, is the fact that our nuclear families in this country have been decimated, where you have so many kids growing up without an intact family. Most are growing up without a father in the home, more now than ever before in our history. There's no fathers in the home. So when you do have both parents together, they're both working because the economy has crushed the middle class. So both parents are working all day, and that gives free access for somebody else to raise your kid. And your kids are being raised by this technology. And so it's not promoting creativity. It's teaching them to be zombies and not be their own person. And they're just like you said, they're going to conform. And that's natural. They're going to look to see what the kid next to them is doing, and they're going to do the same thing. And so that's become an epidemic in our society here. Now, to the solution set of this, how do we break away from this? How do we divorce ourselves from this AI takeover that's happening right now, particularly with our youth?
Yeah, let me say something too, real quick. It's interesting. The SAT, which was created in the 1930s and 40s, was created by Carl Brigham, and it was conceived for the military, a way to test the military. And after 5 years, it was so dysfunctional that he disavowed it, and it has now become the standard or the watermark of the educational system. And it's based on nothing. It says the SAT is irrelevant because it has nothing to do with what children learn in high school nor transition into a career. SAT creates a shadow curriculum that furthers the goals of neither educators nor students. SAT was supposed to measure intelligence but has failed to accomplish this. It's really what it is. It's a multi-billion-dollar testing industry, and the people that issue the tests and run the tests are the ones that are making the money based on nothing. It's complete and total nonsense. It's a fabricated curriculum. The IQ test, just so you know, it was designed to do the complete opposite, by the way. It's not supposed to test your IQ and how intelligent you are. And whatever those statistics are, if you tested at 12 or 16 or 18, regardless, you can increase it by 20 to 30 to 40%. So anyway, I think a couple things that are exciting. This is the negative side. Right now, the positive side. I think we are in a educational reformation. I've said that for over 5 years now, and it's happening. You're seeing this archaic system, specifically on the public side, and especially on the horrendous liberal side, disintegrating, and it's collapsing. You're seeing about 20 to 30% since 2020. You're seeing about 20 to 30% of children not going back to traditional schools. And I had predicted that based on three things, which we can circle back to. We're in a homeschool revolution. We've gone from 5 million to almost 20 million homeschooler kids in the last 4 to 5 years, and that will continue to increase. And the best, most well-rounded, educated children I have ever met in my life are homeschooled. So it's like you could tell me, your kid went to this public school, this private school, and I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he was homeschooled. I'm like, oh, great. Let's talk, because they're usually grounded, they're smart, they're intelligent, they're well-worded, they ask great questions, they listen very nicely, and they're usually 2 to 3 years ahead of the traditional system, which is absolutely ridiculously designed. The idea that I graduate at 22 with a $250,000 debt and I'm equipped to do absolutely nothing is a broken model. And now I need to go on for 2 years to get a master's degree that, again, doesn't really mean much. And then a PhD, and it's like I'm 28 years old, I've got half a million dollars worth of debt, and I'm just starting my life. That's a joke. And we're also in a creative renaissance right now, and this is the time, and this is the era of the creatives, and that's exciting. And where, let's say, 10 years ago there weren't as many opportunities to make a living being a painter or a writer or a graphic designer, that's changed. The internet has helped expedite that. But what better life to live than doing something that you were born to do? We're all born creative. So if your audience is saying, hey, I'm not creative, you were born creative. We were all born creative, and I know that statistically. A gentleman by the name of George Land, he was a researcher hired by the government to create a creativity test decades ago. And it was so successful that he decided to roll it out into the educational system. And so he started testing 5-year-olds, thousands and thousands of 5-year-olds. 98 out of 100% of those 5-year-olds tested off the charts. Geniuses. Came back 5 years later, tested them at 10, dropped down to 30%. Came back and tested them at 15, it dropped down to 12%. Same kids, 10 years later. They were at 98%, now they're at 12% creativity. And what he came to the conclusion of, and which is obvious, is that schools were educating creativity out of children, and yet it's the most important skill in the world. I'll stop.
Yeah, well said, Chad. And just to your point there, where the good part of all this stuff is that it does give these opportunities, just like it's given me the opportunity to do podcasting. I'm a railroad mechanic. That's what I've been doing for a quarter of a century here. And it's given me the opportunity to speak to some of the most famous people in the world. I host a podcast about fatherhood. I've been able to interview, some incredible people, all because of this technology. Now, 10, 15 years ago, I would have had zero opportunity to do that.
Sure.
So obviously there are pluses to this thing. But to your point here about the colleges, it's like what we're seeing is millions and millions of people begging the government to help pay off their tuition. They're begging the taxpayers, the uneducated, to pay off their student debt. Meanwhile, while that's happening simultaneously, you have a whole new group of people that are saying, yeah, I see these people go off the cliff. They got a degree that didn't give them any skill sets to give them a job. They're not earning money, and they're begging for somebody to help them pay off their tuition. So I'm going to go follow in their footsteps and now start the same path. And it's like we have all these kids enrolling in these colleges. They have no idea what it is they want to do, but they're just going to do it because that's what our society has trained them to do. Oh, you have to go to college. That is the way. And I do believe that cycle is being broken. The fact that there is another way other than that college degree. And I also, to your point about the homeschooling, I think that exploded because of COVID and so many kids being home and parents getting an opportunity to see the indoctrination that was taking place at their kids' schools.
Yeah, I based it on three things. I was on when we launched the Britfield series, Britfield Lost Crown series. And I think what makes this dynamic real quick, just as a pitch, if you will, why this is such a popular series nationally and globally, is that it's based in real time. Current time, current places. Book one starts up in England. We incorporate geography, art, architecture, culture, and history, and we make it interesting and fun. It's based on family, friendship, loyalty, courage, and hope. And we incorporate the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration in every single book. We launched book one in 2019, book two, which takes place in France, in 2021, book three, which takes place in Italy, Britfield and the Return of the Prince, in September 2022, and we're getting ready to launch book four, Britfield and the Eastern Empire, which takes place in 11 different countries, and we're launching that in October. And so I was on this national school tour, and I ended up driving 9,000 miles. I visited 23 states, presented to over 200 schools in front of more than 40 to 50,000 students. And I did that, as a researcher, as a writer, as a strategist. I did it obviously just to launch the book series. Great way to do it. Grassroots movement. But I was very curious to roll up my sleeves, boots on the ground, and see America. We hear about it. We hear about the certain states or towns or schools. I wanted to get out there and see, and I did, and it was amazing. And I went all the way up to from San Diego, all the way up to Seattle, all the way over to Chicago, all the way down to New Orleans, and all the way up to Memphis, Tennessee. And I was in Memphis, Tennessee in March 2020 March, and that's when everything had happened and shut down. And I thought, it's like it took me forever. I was like so excited to be in the heart of the country. And I couldn't wait to continue through Tennessee and get into Kentucky and Ohio and all those great places. And I had to turn around and drive back. And I said, it'll be very interesting. I was telling some of my colleagues and friends, it'd be very interesting to see how many parents tell their children or have their children return to the traditional schools when this is over. And they're saying, why? What are you basing it on? I said, three things. One, just like you mentioned, for the first time, parents will be horrified by what their children are being exposed to in school or learning, especially at ages 5, 6, or 7. Are you out of your mind? Number two, how far behind they are in certain subjects that they shouldn't be. And number three, when they can sit down, focus, and concentrate on that day's worth of work, 2 to 3 hours later, they're completely done. They've read, they've done their assignments. Now they have 3 or 4 hours as a child to grow up, have some fun, play, do something creative, and 100 other things, And that's when I started seeing about 6 to 12 months later, statistics coming out saying 30 to 40% of parents weren't sending their kids back to traditional schools. So we've had the explosion in the homeschool. That's a revolution. That is literally in 4 years to go from 5 million to 20 million homeschoolers. That is stunning. That is extraordinary. And I think for a lot of parents, it's daunting. We both work, which again is one of those created models, make the dollar worthless, force the economy up where, gas is 10 times more expensive than it should be, food, et cetera, et cetera. Both parents have to work. Half the population is a paycheck away from bankruptcy. You're not alone. That's all by design. It's not your fault. But they're like, how can I homeschool my parents? But the difference, or my kids, and the difference is You can drop them off at a homeschool group. You don't have to drop them off at one of these institutions. There are so many different models and hybrid models to fit your location, to fit your circumstances or your situation, that it's not about just a parent staying home to, educate their one or two kids and have that isolation. It is an isolation. The homeschool, environment isn't an isolated environment. I remember driving up in Carson, Nevada, and two things happened. This is when I was on my tour. It was very profound because I didn't know much about it 6 years ago. But and I have no personal stock in it. But when something works, I love it, and I am a proponent of it. I am a marketer for it. But I was driving up to this farm as part of our tour, and I just remember looking on this farm, and there's a basketball court, and there's like 5 or 6 boys. It was recess, and they were playing, and it was like 12, 13, 14, 16, and maybe 17. And I'm like, when's the last time you've ever gone on a playground and saw that kind of diversity in age with boys playing basketball together? I mean, it was just my first impression. And I thought, younger ones have someone to esteem towards the older ones, and the older ones have this sort of leadership to protect and help the 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. And the dynamics was just amazing. And I got that within like 2 seconds. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, boy, that is what homeschooling is about. And then I parked my car, and this little 12-year-old girl with, really nice, like sort of little suit on, her hair kind of pulled back. She walks up to me and she's like, "Are you Mr. Stewart?" And I said, "Yes." And she put out her hand. She shook my hand firmly, and she said, "Thank you so much for coming to our homeschool group. We're excited to see you." And I'm like, whoa, where'd you come from? I mean, that's a future CEO of a company. That's a future senator right there. That was my first impression of the homeschool movement. Smart, articulate. They've got gumption, character, diversity. It was amazing. So I'll stop.
And I do think, Chad, that along with the fact that our education system is failing, and I do believe that every time the Secretary of Education or Randy Weingarten opens their mouth, I think it's a homeschooling advertisement. But I think also with this entire transgender movement, where schools now are not even telling the parents that what their kids are doing as far as changing their pronouns and names and all this other stuff, all this other nonsense, I believe the parents are going to be the crucial factor in this year's election, because they are sick and tired of what is happening. You did a great job breaking down the Britfield and the Lost Crown series. You got the book coming out in October. For my listeners that want to go and find out more about the series, where do you send them?
Yeah, best place to go if you want a signed copy, and I'm still signing copies, which is exciting, is the Britfield.com, Britfield, Britfield.com website. It's an award-winning website, dynamic. We've got over 400 pictures of England, which is kind of a great way to sort of see where the book took place. Interactive maps, and if you buy through there, you get the signed copies. If not, Amazon or any of the other major platforms or retails. And we're actually moving into pre-production of the first of 7 major motion pictures within the next 4 weeks, so we're excited about that. And we did transition book 1, Britfield and Lost Crown, into a theatrical play, 90-minute theatrical play, designed for elementary, middle school, even high schools and homeschool groups. And so I encourage parents or teachers to put on the Britfield play and put on something really edifying, clean, educational, and fun.
Incredible. And parents are starving for the content. They are starving for something that will entice their kids' imaginations and get them away from the garbage that's being shoved down their throats. So props to you, Chad Stewart. I got the link you mentioned right down there in the description below. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today on the Alec Lay Show.
Appreciate it. Privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
Scary times. I'll tell you right now, I'm grateful to have Chad Stewart on the podcast. What do you guys think about that interview? It is Looney Tunes, what we are putting our youth through in this country through the school system, okay? Miguel Cordonez, or whatever his name is, I'm not saying it right, the Secretary of Education, another Marxist guy that has that philosophy that they know the state of the education system knows better for your kids than the parents do. The kids don't belong to you, they belong to the school system. I mean, this is that philosophy. We've heard it even from the President of the United States, Joe Biden. We hear it constantly from the left. Kids don't belong to their parents, they belong to the whole community. And that's the kind of philosophy that this education department has with our kids. They have done nothing but poison their minds. They do not, as you heard Chad Stewart there, they are not developing the critical thinking skills, the creativity skills. We are putting our kids behind the 8 ball, and you could see it when you interact with the kids in our society. You see it. I mean, there's no way you could have grown up in the America that I grew up in and then communicate with this younger generation and not say, what the hell is going on here? Like, there is a big, big problem that we've had, and a lot of it has to do with this education system that is failing. You can't say it's succeeding. You can't point to anywhere and say, hey, our education system's on fire here, man. Let's double down on our efforts of what we're doing. It's failing miserably. And forget about the colleges in this country. It's a scam and a joke. So it has always been that way since I can remember. It seems like there's zero possibility that you're going to go to college and then all of a sudden come out with some kind of ambition, some kind of creative mindset to go start. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people that do it. But the far majority are coming out with degrees that are completely useless and will never use them in their life. Yet they've got, as Chad was saying, half a million dollars in debt just to start their life out. That means they can't get married, can't have kids because they can't afford to do snot. So a disaster happening there. All right, last thing, we're going to switch topics here again. Pope Francis came out with a banger yesterday, a grave sin to reject migrants. We've heard him have this language before. He's very much for you bringing people into your home. When you see people sleeping outside the Vatican and you see the wall around the Vatican, it's okay. They don't want the wall around your country. They don't want the wall around your house. They want it around, around your house, not theirs. But Pope Francis has been a disappointment. As a Catholic, I have been, and I know this is a blasphemous thing to criticize the Pope, but this guy has been dangerous, I think, to the United States of America and the conservative movement. He seems to be very anti-conservative, and I cannot put my finger on the reason why. And so I want to get into that. Plus, what doesn't make any sense is that'll push people towards this Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who are the most pro-abortion. It is the most pro-abortion ticket, I think, that we've ever seen run for president. So I'm going to bring on Father Frank Pavone, who is the director of Priests for Life. Nobody is a bigger name in the pro-life movement than Frank Pavone. Father Frank Pavone was defrocked by the Vatican back in 2022. He has been on the forefront of the fight for life. And again, there's a lot of infighting going on in the Republican Party. President Trump's not pro-life enough. He's not taking enough strong stances. So we're seeing a lot of pushback on that. So we're going to get into all that right now. I'm going to bring on Father Frank Pavone. Let's do this.
You're listening to the Alec Lake Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Father Frank Pavone. Welcome back to the Alec Lake Show.
Alec, good to be with you.
Always an honor to get you on here. You know, I wanted to touch on, before I get to this wild abortion ticket that's running for presidency right now, I wanted to touch on the Pope yesterday. He made this statement that it was a grave sin to reject migrants. And it also happens to come on the same day where we see these migrants taking over a hotel out in Colorado. We see these Venezuelan migrants. So I wanted to give you, the quote from Pope Francis was, "We must say it clearly, there are those who work systematically and with every means to reject migrants. And this, when done with conscience and responsibility, is a grave sin." So what was your take on that?
Well, he's articulating half of the truth. The principle, spiritual principle, of course, is that we welcome migrants, and we do. I mean, I don't know of any of our politicians who are saying we reject them in principle or as persons, or, oh, we don't want migrants coming into our country anymore. But the other side of that coin is the precise reason why we would welcome someone who wants to come into our country is also the reason we would want to protect them, and we would want to protect the same people who are already here. And that's where, you look, here's the Pope speaking, right? So you look at the Catholic Catechism to see what it says about immigration. And it says, on the one hand, yes, we welcome people because they're people, right? They're made in the image and likeness of God. At the same time, they have to, when they want to come into a country, they have to obey and respect its laws. And the country has to welcome them if it can provide for them, and if, in fact, it can manage the situation in a way that respects human dignity. We look at what's going on at the border right now, our open, unsecured, broken, evaporated border, and it's an absolute humanitarian crisis. People, you look at some of these videos and people climbing through barbed wire and pushing their babies through, or going through mud and water. It's not, you look at it and say, it's not supposed to be this way. That's unfair to those people to just say, hey, everybody, come across and get in whatever way you can. That's not respecting those people. And furthermore, it's just as much a violation of Christian and Catholic teaching to allow terrorists, rapists, gang members, and sex and drug traffickers to just walk across that border unvetted. And these are things that the Pope would not disagree with, and yet, you know, I see this is one of those things with the Pope. You know, it's like, is he saying these things deliberately to for political purposes? Because it's the same thing the Democrats do. They'll speak a half truth, just omitting just enough for people then to take that word and run with it for a political agenda. I can't read his mind. I don't know if that's what he's doing, or maybe his advisors are doing. But we, as the recipients of this message, ought to be smarter than that. And I hope that all our fellow believers are.
Well said, Father. And this is a contentious issue all around the world right now. So it's like I mean, it is a very highly contested political issue. There's no doubt about it. So to comment on it is definitely kind of throwing your hat into the ring. And you talk about this with the border, too, about the children. We have 320,000 children that are missing. They have no idea where they are. And this is in addition to 85,000 children prior reported that were missing. So this is an epidemic just with the children alone.
And if people want to be ignorant about this, which it seems like a lot of people do, then the blame is on them, not on the people who are trying to control the border.
Yeah, there's no doubt. All right, I just wanted to get your take there. Now I got to switch to this. This has to be the most pro-abortion ticket that I think maybe that's ever run for president.
Absolutely. No, Harris and Walz, in fact, it's a problem not just with them personally, but with the whole Democrat Party right now. They can identify no restrictions or regulations on abortion that they want. And the American people are not there. American people have never been there. Every single poll on American attitudes towards abortion shows that people are ambivalent. You know, they're wrestling with it. Why? Because you've got two lives involved. All right. And so any reasonable person is going to look at this and say, hey, wait a minute, we're in favor of freedom. And we're in favor of life. The American people are in favor of both of those things. And when you've got two lives in the balance, then you try to figure out, how do the rights of these two people, one of whom is inside the other, intersect, and how do you balance that? Okay, it's fair enough to say that's what constitutes the abortion debate. But what Harris and Walz and the modern Democrat Party do is they try to resolve the abortion issue by dropping out one of the parts of the debate. In other words, they pretend it's just a one-dimensional argument, which is you can't deprive women of their health care. You can't restrict women's reproductive rights. We don't want to deprive women of health care or put their lives in danger or take away their reproductive rights. We really don't want to do that. But that's only looking at it as if abortion affects just the woman. And I mean, it's just, can it get any more basic than this? It's like, what is the abortion? Why is it a debate in the first place? There's two lives involved. I'd like to hear Harris and Walz even acknowledge that there's a second life involved. They don't. And that's why they're so out of touch with the American people on this issue.
And Walz is a dangerous radical on this issue, just because even in the state of Minnesota, you know, he's allowing babies that survive the abortion attempt to die on the table without any medical assistance.
You said it.
And also, you don't even have, he also signed the bill so you don't even have to report it when it happens. I mean, this guy's dangerous.
This is an important issue. And again, I lay the blame on the entire Democrat Party because, you know, if you think back a few years ago, I was very much involved in these efforts. When Democrats controlled the House, the Republicans tried to use a discharge petition to which is that, you know, the leadership doesn't want to introduce a bill for a vote, allow a bill to have a vote. And so if enough members, if a majority of the members say, we want to vote on this anyway, they can do it. They can bypass the leadership, right? So they came very close to discharging a bill that would increase protections nationwide for babies who are born alive after a failed abortion. And that does happen. And it's been documented by the CDC. It's been documented by a number of states. What happened? The Democrats consistently resisted that. Not only did they not want that law, they didn't want even to have an honest debate and vote about it. This tells us there is something radically wrong here when it comes to the fate of these little babies, whether they're in the womb or on a table struggling to breathe and they need a little bit of medical attention. So Walz and Harris, I mean, they're reflecting the utter lack of conscience when it comes to this whole abortion issue and anything related to it. And it's, you know, when I talk to people about this all across America, Alec, they don't even believe it. They don't even believe that this is happening. But it is. It's documented, and we have got to call them out on it.
Yeah, very well said. And I think Kamala, one of her last acts as a senator before embracing the VP ticket with Joe Biden was to vote against that Born Alive protection bill
Yes.
that she did. So it's like both of them are on board. They're very, very to the left. And even just the optics, Father, when they had the DNC, you got an abortion bus parked outside the arena. I mean, gee, this is what mind boggles me, is that how do we have Catholics that are supporting this kind of ticket and say, well, I'm Catholic, but I'm willing to suspend my Catholic beliefs because I hate Trump that much that I put in these people that are just insane when it comes to the issue.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is an insanity. And, it doesn't go along with, first of all, the months before the Democrat convention, I was saying to people, I said, mark my words, this convention is going to be indistinguishable from a national abortion convention. And that's exactly what happened, not only in terms of the abortion van, but the speakers and the way they lied. I mean, those women who spoke on the first night and said, oh, I couldn't get an abortion. One was from Texas. Oh, because the law didn't allow me, but I had a life-threatening situation. No, that's a lie. The law in Texas, in fact, she had a case that went all the way up to the Texas Supreme Court, and they said you could have had an abortion. The Texas law allows it for situations like you faced medically. Your doctor just has to certify that you really need that. And the other woman from Louisiana, same thing. The Louisiana law, although it's strongly pro-life, strongly protective of the unborn, nevertheless allows for situations where there is medical emergency. So it's like, why can't they argue the issue on its merits? Why do they have to lie about what the laws actually say in these pro-life states in order to make their point? And the answer to that is because you can't defend baby killing. You just can't. There's no defense for it. You have to make the argument about something else. I'm depriving women of life-saving medical care. They have to make that the argument rather than, hey, it's really okay to kill a baby. But when you look at the convention, you had the abortion van outside. You have these people inside lying, but it's all wrapped up in a rebellion against God's truth, which is, there they are saying, a man isn't a man, a woman isn't a woman, and that's based on the lie that a baby isn't a baby. Isn't it the same problem? When we think that it's up to our choice whether I'm going to be a man, it's up to my choice whether I'm going to be a woman, it's up to my choice whether that life in the womb is a baby. And all of that, it's self-deception, it's delusion, and it's immoral because it's a lie against God's truth.
Really, man, that was brilliantly put, Father, because that is true. The way that they play on the words and they change it, and they call it gender-affirming care, and it's really mutilating a child's body, and they call it health care. Same thing with the abortion. Oh, women's health, so it has that nice ring to it.
Right.
And that's what they did. And then you have like Tim Walz, who says, mind your own damn business. Yet during COVID, he sets up a hotline for the neighbors to rat one another out that they ain't following protocol. So these people are so full of it. But the transgenderism part of this too, with what they're doing to our youth in this country, who are now taking these puberty blockers that are getting these sex changes. And you have Tim Walz, who's one of these people that it's not required to even tell the parents that the children are pursuing these types of things. And it became a sanctuary state for the transgender surgery for kids.
I've been saying it. Many other people have been saying it. These people, Walz, Harris, and many of the other leadership in the Democrat Party are communists. And, some Americans might think that's too extreme. It's just name calling. Oh, you're exaggerating. It's hyperbole. It's not, because you look at their policies, this being one of them. What are they really aiming at? Do they really care about gender? No, I think what they really care about is destroying the family, because, there's no better, let's put it this way, there's no stronger way to confuse a child than to mess with their sense of their own sexual identity. And you start confusing them as to whether they're a boy or a girl. And now you are putting them in a very weak position. You're putting their parents in a very vulnerable position. And then you're swooping in to try to separate the parents from the child. That is, whether it's about gender, whether it's about getting an abortion without parental consent, which is also part of their agenda, or anything else, you could kind of fill in the blank. What it's all about is destroying the nuclear family. Just like these riots, we saw the riots about George Floyd. We saw the riots about, President Trump we don't want him to be elected. And you saw the riots about, Palestine, and they don't even know what they're talking about, river to the sea. They say, what is it, the Hudson River? They don't know what they're talking about. But that's a fill in the blank kind of thing, because with communism, the issue is never the issue. It's not, the riots are not about the issue that they say they're rioting about. The riots are about destabilizing society, tearing up the culture, ripping up the civilization so that they can swoop in with their power grab. Our fellow citizens have to start to understand that this is what's going on here. This is an attempt at a communist takeover of America. And if people think that's radical hyperbolic language, I would suggest they start doing their homework and they start reading and studying exactly what's going on here.
And we've even heard that from the top, Father, where it's, children don't belong to their parents; they belong to the whole community.
Yeah.
These are everybody's children, and it has been this. It's children don't belong to the state or the government; they belong to their parents as a blessing from God, and that's what we got to keep straight. And just to your point there too, yeah, it's great that we have these things. Like, thank God for X and Rumble and places where there's still truth. But you see people interviewing people at these riots. They have no idea what the issue is even all about. Like, just like you said, they don't know what river, they don't know what they're over there bombing, robbing stores for. They just know that they're taking part in the anarchy, and that's it.
That's what it is. It's a love of anarchy, and that's why, there used to be a time where I could say, hey, the church can be neutral with politics because, one party has one policy, one has another. Well, argue out the policies. May the best man win. A lot of it is trial and error. But we're at a different point now because the difference between the parties is not just on policy, it's on principles, the principles underlying the policy, the principles of the gospel, the principles of basic morality, and the principles of America. The Democrats have rejected all three. And that's why there's no more room now for neutrality. I was just speaking to a group of hundreds of pastors in Texas. They came from around the country. And I said this to them, and they were in full agreement. There's no more room for neutrality by the church or by anybody else if we love America and if we believe in the difference between right and wrong.
It's all hands on deck right now. And that's what leads me to my last thing I want to hit on is Donald Trump. He is getting, for his stance on abortion, for his position on abortion, you have people that are saying he's not pro-life enough. I know we just had that Lila Rose, where, she came out and said, if you don't stand for pro-life principles, you don't get pro-life votes. So you have some people that are very hard on Donald Trump because he's not pro-abortion enough. Now they're saying that they're going to not give him their vote, which means the alternative is the most positive pro-abortion ticket in history. So explain this to me.
That is the most politically blind thing to do. Look, the bottom line is the election is not between where President Trump stands and where we stand on abortion. We know there's no abortion can be justified. Fine. That's the principle, and we'll keep proclaiming that. But the election isn't between Trump and that. It's between Trump and the absolute radical abortion position we've been talking about for the Democrats. So it's like, why in the world would we be so clueless about how politics works that we would think that we can let those Democrats get in power because we don't want to feel like we're morally tainted by voting for someone who doesn't talk about pro-life the way that we do. Here's the bottom line. I don't need President Trump to be giving pro-life speeches or to even believe in the same way that I do about the issue. Right now, what does the pro-life movement need right now from President Trump? One thing and one thing only: to get elected, because that's how we get these radical Democrats out of office. That's it. Has he said that when he appointed hundreds of pro-life judges the first time around that was a mistake? I haven't heard him say that. Has he said it was a mistake for him to reinstitute and expand the Mexico City policy, protecting our tax dollars from going to abortion, or to kick Planned Parenthood out of the Title X program? He deprived them of $63 million a year. Has he said that was a mistake? Has he said it was a mistake to have the Office of Conscience and Religious Rights that he established under HHS to protect doctors and nurses from being forced to participate in abortion? Has he said it was a mistake to get the United States into what's called the Geneva Consensus, an alliance of pro-life countries? He hasn't gone back on any of that. And he'll do that all again. Instead, what these left-wing reporters do is they say, oh, well, you sign a national ban on abortion. A national ban on abortion is not going to get to his desk. That the political will in the Congress isn't there right now. Someday we'll get to that point, but it's not there right now. So why are they asking these academic questions that only end up being political traps to get people who are, yes, strong in pro-life principle, but not so politically savvy, to say things like you were just quoting, as some of our pro-life activists say. Come on, everybody, let's get some political wisdom going here. You can be politically savvy and pro-life principled at the same time. You don't choose between one or the other. We got to have them both.
Yeah, and it would be just so dangerous. Like you say, you have a guy, a ticket there that says young kids that are getting abortions don't even have to tell their parents. Parents don't need consent to give their kids to go and get an abortion. These people are radical that are running for president right now. So to even say that you would withhold your vote for President Trump, I can't compute that. It makes no sense.
I can't fathom that. I really can't.
Well, Father Frank, I appreciate you. Last minute here, I tapped you up for this. I'd love to have you back on anytime. Thanks for giving me your time today on the Alec Lace Show.
I'm at your disposal. God bless you. Thanks.
All right, very grateful to have my friend Father Frank Pavone back on the podcast here. What'd you guys think about our interview? Hit me with a comment down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the conversation. And don't forget to follow the channel wherever you're listening to. Follow, subscribe, like, comment, share. Father Frank Pavone, it really, I don't get how you could speak to a Democrat that's a Catholic and say, you're going to vote for Kamala Harris? Do you realize what her stances are on abortion? I mean, just the abortion issue alone, her and Tim Walz are the most radical. They're the two most radical people that have ever run for the White House when it comes to abortion. It's sickening. So anyway, again, we 68 days to go to make this decision. So I'm grateful to Gordon Chang, Chad Stewart, and Father Pavone for giving me a few minutes. I'm trying to bring you guys the best guests that I can gather to give you guys the information I'm curious about. Your guest suggestions are always very helpful. Please keep them coming. So today we banged out something about China, about AI, and about the Catholic Church and abortion and the whole bit. So it was a lot of fun and educational for me. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you did, share the broadcast with somebody else you think might like it. And thank you for keeping the Alec Lace Show very popular on Rumble. And also, we're starting to move up the ranks and charts other places too, as far as Apple, Spotify. So please keep it coming and please keep sharing. I appreciate you. August was a banger here for the Alec Lace Show. And grateful we continue to grow. So as long as we're doing that, we're in the right direction. And it's going to be a sprint now. We just rounded the corner. We're headed to the finish line. We have rounded that far turn. And now it is a sprint until November 5th, right? Because the next time I speak to you guys will be in September. And it is going to be downhill. And things are going to be moving fast. And we're going to see a lot more. I mean, you think it couldn't get any crazier. I think by the time we are done with these next 2 months, it's going to seem like decades since Trump got shot in the head. All right, and that's all I got for you guys here today. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Don't forget, like, subscribe, follow, share, the whole bit. And follow me on X at Alec Lace. I'm doing my best to grab the best guests that I can. Once Congress gets back in session, I'm going to be firing out a lot of requests, seeing how many different members of Congress I can get on here as we try to close out this sprint. So I appreciate you guys joining me. Bring it back on Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be going live on Rumble at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless all you parents out there. God bless you listeners. God bless you police, first responders. God bless our military, our veterans. God bless America. And I will catch you guys on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.